Dan, great to see you this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get to it. We've got a new man at the top of Saudi Arabia. Have you been in touch with the Saudis? Will you meet Abdullah Aziz this week?
We would love to meet with them this week. We have enjoyed a long-standing relationship with both Mr. Al-Fallah and Mr. Abdullah Aziz. We expect that that will continue, not only at the government level, but at the industry level as well. So we look forward to it.
Have the Saudis been in touch with you? Have you already had conversations?
Our staffs have had conversations. We hope to meet perhaps later today, perhaps tomorrow.
What's the message from the president? Does he want them to know that he doesn't support these cuts? Is that still the U.S. message to OPEC?
No, we're not as interested in their cuts. We're more interested in U.S. energy production. So we are working very hard to produce more oil, which is going to have some impact, we think, on the decisions here in Saudi Arabia. But we don't engage in their decisions about how much to produce. We are more concerned about what we produce.
12.5 million barrels is what you produce at the moment. Is the number one priority energy independence over what goes on with OPEC?
I think it is. We are more concerned about that 12.5 million. We expect that to continue. We're going to look at roughly 13 million barrels per day toward the end of 2019 and perhaps as high as 13.5 in 2020. So the president is very much focused on doing what we can to reduce regulatory burden, to reduce any sort of burden whatsoever on that energy production.
Let's pivot to Iran. We're in Abu Dhabi. Brian Hook, the special envoy, has said that there are more sanctions to come on Iran. What are you going to target next?
Well, we're going to continue to target what we've already targeted. Maximum pressure means maximum pressure. The president has been very, very clear about this, and we are going to work closely with our State Department allies as well as our industry partners to ensure that Iran will stop this malign behavior.
But is that products that you're going to target? Because people are saying to me the production is already hunkered down at pretty low levels. So what's next on that list?
Well, it's export of the product. So what we're seeing is that we're seeing exports kind of trickle around the world. We're working with other countries, India, China in particular. We're still seeing some purchases. We have been very, very strict and very, very firm in our conversations with both countries, which are led by the State Department, I want to be clear. But we're going to continue to clamp down on these exports.
Help me understand what's changed. At the G7, the President of the United States intimated that he would support this credit line theory to Iran. It now would appear that shifted. Clarify for us.
Look, the President has said, the Secretary of State has said, the Secretary of Energy has said, anything is possible with Iran. We have indicated very clearly we will negotiate with no preconditions.
So are there waivers? Is there a potential for a waiver to be granted to allow this credit line?
Perhaps there is. I can't really speak for Secretary Pompeo. Perhaps there is, but I can tell you that everything's on the table. We want them to rejoin the community of the world and end this malign behavior.
We understand there could be talks between Rouhani and Mr. Trump before the end of the month. So does that come with no preconditions from the American side?
I think that's what the President has said very clearly.
The 15 billion credit line that Bruno Le Maire wants to propose, in terms of the impact, that is something that the world wants to see the United States perhaps lean on. Mm-hmm. What does it take to get you to move on this credit line?
I'll leave that to Secretary Pompeo. He is leading the conversations on behalf of the U.S. government. I'll leave those types of issues to him.
Well, okay, you've got energy independence. You're going for higher than 13.5 million barrels.
Right.
If you eased up on Iran, supply side would increase presumably from Iran.
Presumably.
That would help energy prices lower. Is that not what the administration wants?
The administration wants energy efficiency. We want affordability for American consumers as well as the world consumers. We've talked about this in Europe. We've talked about it all over the world. We don't set a price. We don't seek a price. We don't manipulate our market to set a price. We simply want affordable energy.
You mentioned those countries that perhaps had not been complying fully, China and India, in regards to Iran exports. Mm-hmm. What additional efforts will you take or make to bring China in line with these sanction violations?
Well, there are many things on the table with regard to China, as you well know. So there's an active trade negotiation that's going on. I'm sure Ambassador Lighthizer is factored in some of these conversations. We're also going to look in the case of India for alternatives that they're seeking for Iranian oil. And we can help them do that, as well as for Venezuelan oil. So there are other alternatives in the marketplace available to them today. We're brokering some of these conversations, and we're going to assist them in any way possible.
Do you think oil is going to feature higher in the trade war negotiations in terms of the give and take?
That I don't really know. I have to defer to Ambassador Lighthizer because I don't know what other cards are on the table.
Mr. Lighthizer has got a lot of answers in this particular agenda, doesn't he?
He's in a very important role.
What about in the region here in terms of, we understand that there's still some products coming in from Iran into the UAE. Have you had discussions with the UAE in that regard?
I will later today.
What will your message be?
Well, we want to know what it is that they're buying and how much. And our expectation is that they have been very compliant to date. We expect that they're going to continue that compliance. It's our understanding that some of the purchases are really at the margins. They're very specialized products to fill very specific needs. But we're going to be very candid with them. As I said earlier, maximum pressure does in fact mean maximum pressure.
Is that a strong will you reprimand the UAE?
Oh, I leave that. Sanctions are not in my line of work, and that's for the State Department, Treasury Department, and others to do. But I am here to deliver that message. I want to know more about the energy situation. I want to understand better why they continue some of these marginal purchases, and to the extent that they can stop them, we're going to ask them to stop them.